In the mountains of Norway, the ice is disappearing, and it's leaving something behind. Not just rock, not just meltwater. Tools, weapons, clothing, things human hands made and used over 10,000 years ago, sealed in ice ever since the last ice age. And now, for the first time since they were lost, exposed to open air. Archaeologists have a name for this work: dark archaeology. Because they didn't go looking for this. The ice is handing it to them, and once it does, there's no putting it back. These objects start decaying within months of hitting daylight. Right now, in mountain ranges on 3 continents, scientists are in a flat-out race against the clock to reach these sites before what survived 10 millennia is lost in a single summer. This isn't one discovery. It's a pattern showing up everywhere. Mountain ice survives. Norway, the Yukon in Canada, the Alps, even high in the Andes. As high-altitude ice that's persisted for thousands of years shrinks back, it's exposing ground that hasn't seen open air since before the pyramids were built. Here's the part most coverage of this story skips. Not all ice does this. A flowing glacier, like the one that famously preserved Ötzi the Iceman in the Alps, is a slow-moving river of ice. It crushes, grinds, and drags whatever falls into it, scattering artifacts far from where they were dropped, often destroying them in the process. That's why finds inside true glaciers are rare and usually damaged. What's actually producing most of these finds is different: ice patches. Unlike glaciers, ice patches don't flow. They're frozen in place, building up in layers like a slow, cold cake, which means an arrow dropped on the surface 1,000 years ago is still sitting almost exactly where it landed, just buried under later layers of snow and ice. When an ice patch shrinks instead of a glacier, archaeologists aren't digging through chaos. They're opening a sealed time capsule in order. The clearest proof of this is a site called Langfjorden, high in Norway's Jotunheimen Mountains. Over the past 2 decades, this single ice patch has retreated by more than 70%, and as it's shrunk, it's given up 68 arrows. Not from one hunting party, but spanning 6,000 years of continuous use, from the Stone Age all the way through to the medieval period. Why arrows, specifically, in this one spot? Because reindeer, like the hunters chasing them, were trying to escape summer heat and biting insects. The animals retreated to the ice to cool down. Hunters followed, century after century, using the same high ground for thousands of years. Archaeologists even found the hunters' own tools for the job: scaring sticks, driven into the ground in lines to funnel panicked reindeer toward waiting bowmen. Lars Pilo, the glacial archaeologist who co-directs Norway's Secrets of the Ice project, calls sites like this a frozen archive. His team has now catalogued more than 4,500 artifacts through the program, including the world's oldest known intact pair of skis and a 3,300-year-old leather shoe pulled straight out of the same retreating ice. Every layer is a different century. Nothing here is vague. It's dated, it's catalogued, and it's sitting in a Norwegian museum right now. Langfjorden tells you who was hunting here. A second site, less than a day's hike away, tells you who was simply passing through, and it's arguably the single richest ice patch site ever found. In 2011, a melting ice patch called Lenbreen gave up a wool tunic, radiocarbon dated to the 3rd or 4th century A.D. That one find turned out to be the edge of something much bigger. An entire mountain pass used continuously for 1,200 years, from around 300 A.D. to roughly 1500 A.D., with its busiest period right in the middle of the Viking Age, around the year 1000. This wasn't a hunting ground. It was a road. Archaeologists have since pulled out more than 1,000 artifacts from the route. Horseshoes, the bones of pack horses, the remains of sleds, a walking stick, a wooden tinder box, even the body of a dog still wearing its collar and leash. Stone cairns mock the route at intervals, like ancient trail signs, with the remains of a stone shelter where travelers could wait out a storm. And then, around 1500 AD, the traffic just stops. The leading theory ties the pass's abandonment to the Black Death, the plague that wiped out a third of Europe's population and broke apart the trade networks that had kept this frozen highway in use for over a millennium. After that, nobody crossed it again. The ice simply closed over the road and kept it sealed for the next 500 years. This isn't a Norway story, it's a melting ice story, and it's happening wherever ancient ice survives. In 1997, two sheep hunters in Canada's Yukon Territory stumbled onto something strange on a mountainside, a field of frozen caribou dung, in a spot caribou hadn't grazed in over a century. That discovery opened up the Yukon ice patches and led to the recovery of a hunting dart shaft over 9,000 years old, among the oldest hunting weapons ever found intact in the Americas. The story matches Norway's almost exactly. Caribou retreating to the ice to escape summer heat, hunters following for thousands of years, and weapons technology frozen mid-transition, throwing darts used for roughly 8,000 years, until they were abruptly and completely replaced by the bow and arrow around 1,200 years ago. Some of the Yukon darts are preserved well enough that the original sinew bindings, the fletching, even traces of red ochre paint are still visible. Two continents. Same mechanism. Same race against the same melting clock. Here's the part that makes this an urgent story, not just an interesting one. These artifacts survived 10,000 years because they were never exposed, locked in a stable deep freeze with no oxygen, no sunlight, no fluctuation. The moment that ice retreats and an object hits open air, that protection ends immediately. Organic material, wood, leather, sinew, textile, can begin to break down within a single season of freeze-thaw cycles and exposure. Lars Piehler has described his own field as dark archaeology. Archaeologists becoming the unlikely beneficiaries of retreating ice, racing to document and recover material before it's destroyed by the very thaw that revealed it. His own team has projected that if current melting trends continue, the majority of Norway's mountain ice could be gone within this century, taking with it everything still sealed inside that hasn't been found yet. That's the trade at the center of this entire story. The ice that protected human history for 10,000 years is the same ice that's now destroying it on a clock nobody gets to set. Every object in this video, the arrows, the tunic, the dog's leash, the 9,000-year-old dart, was sitting in undisturbed ice longer than the pyramids have existed. Most of it was found by accident, by hikers, hunters, or researchers, checking a patch that used to be permanent and suddenly wasn't. Nobody knows exactly what's still sealed up there. But every summer the ice retreats further, and every summer the window to reach what's underneath gets a little smaller. We'll be covering whatever surfaces next, the moment it's confirmed. Subscribe if you don't want to miss it.